Hey guys, welcome back to another Casual NBA Fanatic podcast. It's been a really cool few days seeing guys like Cooper Flagg and his electrifying Summer League start. We've seen the flashes from guys like Yang Hansen and Dylan Harper. It's a really exciting time of the NBA. Obviously a quiet time after the championship and draft and free agency, but now we get to see these young guys compete at such a high level trying to fight for these roster spots. And soon we will be coming out with a podcast reviewing some of the bright points of the Summer League itself and, what is there to be encouraged about and what is there to be questionable about. But before we get to that, though, we're going to continue our NBA player rankings, numbers 80 to 71. And as a disclosure, for these 10 players, we have guys who are really just star role players, just true commodities across the league and absolute luxuries for these winning NBA franchises to have guys who bring balanced impact and have really flourished behind their team's stars. And with that, we're going to start with our number 80, and that is Dereck Lively from the Dallas Mavericks. And Dereck himself is just the absolute total package as your interior big because of all the all-out diverse impact that he does give you with that coordinated, that confident ball handling as that DHO fulcrum on the perimeter. But he also gives you some freakishly great switching, big man possessions defensively, being able to contain drives, being able to contain jumpers and contain those passing windows with his athleticism and his timing and the wingspan that he does bring to the game. And with Lively, he isn't just gifted with his athleticism. I mean, Dereck Lively is purely one of the guys who just fights and battles continuously, imposing that physicality that he does have, and that does play into his pick and roll coverage, being a relatively imposing drop big man who can contest downhill guards while also having that ability to recover to his roll man off the glass as well. And with that physicality that he plays with, he's just such a special role player in this league, and he provides value in almost every single matchup that he competes in. There are just so many guys who have the athletic traits in this league, but there aren't many guys who can put it all together every single possession that you're on the floor, and that is really unique about this young guy. And it does allow you to have a greater level of total impact. If for a guy like Dereck Lively, when you do compete with your athleticism on the margins continuously, and when you don't have the overall touch to make you a offensive superstar in this league, this is what makes role players so valuable in this league, the guys that do compete with all of their tools that they do have at their disposal. And for Dereck Lively, he channels that motor towards perfecting the fundamentals defensively as well. He's not just going out there playing erratic style of basketball. He already has instilled himself as a top-tier help big man in the NBA with his positioning instincts, the cognitive reaction processing, the defensive decision-making as that interior anchor. That's what makes him really special and why the Mavericks are so convinced to build around this guy for their future. He has that 7'7" wingspan that does help him contest floaters and finishing looks around the rim. But this also helps him with the switchability. I mean, the lateral balance as well helps, but the swarming hands that he has are just a different monster on the perimeter where he can completely disintegrate all of your passing and attacking windows and all of your release points. Lively's just an absolutely incredible cognitive and physical defensive beast. He just plays with such tenacity. And he plays with the motor, like we've mentioned, of a non-rotation piece in lineups. It looks like he's just fighting for his minutes on the floor, but we know how capable he really is. So defensively overall, with the motor and with the athleticism and with the physical build, that is really the peak for me with Lively. But I mean, when you add in the plus ball handling, when you add in the higher order passing at the top of the key, and you add in the 4-on-3 situation reads coming out of pick and roll, you have the relatively developed finishing touch, you have the vertical target with his athletic pop. I mean, when you add all of that aggregate impact with what he does on the offensive floor, I mean, D-Love is without a doubt one of the best role-playing bigs that we have in the NBA. And obviously he won't be a very super offensive charged big man in the league who can give you 20 a game nightly with his scoring talent. I mean, his shot touch foundation is still relatively raw to be someone who can convert against contact on volume reps and like in isolation in the post. And he really hasn't shown much promise with the spot-up three yet to be enthused about with a possible true spacing potential. But the fact that he can replicate much of what someone like Draymond Green does in terms of the actual role play stuff on the margins and defensively, And he does that with a more absurd physical and athletic arsenal into what his physical build is and what his archetype is. And that just makes him such an intriguing guy, despite the average production numbers. And we know the value that Dereck Lively does bring as that pick and roll piece on both ends of the floor. And why he was such an amazing fit, even just in his rookie season, sitting next to Luka Doncic. And that Mavericks offense as well, just contributing in so many different ways. And that's why he does land here at number 80, above guys that can score 20 a game nightly. So Dereck Lively starts our list today. Second off, though, we're going to head over to a team that hasn't seen much success in the recent years since trading their designated superstar of the 2010s. We have the Portland Trail Blazers with their best player over the past year, Deni Avdija. Someone that lands here decently high, but it's because of the art of versatility, which I'm continuing to preach here in these NBA rankings and in these discussions. And Avdija, to me, is a guy who does bring that immensely at the forward and wing spot. He's got almost every tool in his basket, and he's put together a very productive year as well that does play into it for Portland. He's probably been their best player over the past year. He just put together a season averaging 17, 7, and 4 assists on 55% effective field goal percentage. Very respectable numbers. And with Deni, he just boasts all the traits of a perfected role player. He's got the extreme physical size. I mean, he's at 240 pounds with that 6'9" frame. But he's got the mobility to play your 2 or 3 with that defensive stability that he gives you in multiple different facets. I mean, with Deni, the skill development was the main thing that he did need to work on coming out of Washington. But with his development in Portland and what we've seen over the past few years, I mean, he's found more than enough shot touch that can match those strengths that he has always had as a strong ball handler, as a very decent ball mover with decent vision that's been with him since he was drafted. Just that shot touch coming together really rounds out the offense, which was the big question mark if he can be a valuable starter in this league. Obviously, as an athlete, he's got the transition potential as a role player to be pretty effective. He's got very decent vision, but he's got that bolstering frame, with the great general speed that he has with the 6'9" frame, but also the speed with the 240 pounds that he does bring. It's just a powerful force in transition. And where he has established these traits is as a timely cutter as well, as a closeout attacking piece with the powerful frame. It just has a lot to be intrigued about, especially as on those closeout attacks as well. You can see how he uses that agile frame that he has to further extend advantages, and he's just a very smart basketball player who can contribute to very high motion, high ball and play movement offenses. And really, for the big portion of the season that NBA fans were very enthused about was post All-Star. Deni put together a very productive and very efficient stretch here. He shot 42% of his threes after the All-Star break on nearly 6 attempts a game in that 20-game stretch as well. And in this stretch, he averaged 23 and 10 rebounds and 5 assists, bumping the effective field goal percentage up to 59%. And that's where he garnered most of that recognition this season. And that's where he showed all the flashes of what he can really be, maybe as a starting wing for a championship team in the future. And he isn't yet this beastly advantage creating force just yet. I mean, there's a lot of ball security concerns that pop up quite frequently in his game. The handle isn't extremely versatile just yet, and he can still struggle with highly physical forwards, guys who can contain his driving impact and that forceful momentum that he does bring. But he does play with a deliberate speed that does make him dangerous in the full court. He's got encouraging decision-making base as well. He's got some real strength and powerful momentum advantages that do allow him to create those advantages at a very respectable level. And he has enough other tools that he can fall onto as well when that does fade. You talk about the agility, you talk about his vision as well, his ability, his footwork, driving footwork in the lane, being able to throw together those spin moves as well. And as he sharpens the pull-up touch as well, I mean, his pull-up touch was a 44% shot post All-Star, which is extremely encouraging to think about. But if he keeps sharpening that pull-up touch, he's really going to well round out that offensive skill. And with all the defensive stability that we've seen from him as a physical athlete from his Washington days, a very disciplined defender in isolation. I mean, so much to be enthused about for NBA fans. And with the positive shooting coming along, he just contributes in so many ways. And that just makes him such a portable and diverse piece in the NBA, a guy who can play a multitude of positions and roles with his timing and intelligence as a basketball player. And for that fact, I think he's been Portland's best player over the past year, and he ranks here at number 79. Moving to 78, we have Jaden McDaniels from the Minnesota Timberwolves, one of the most profiled defensive athletes in the NBA, someone who's been on great teams for consecutive years now as a leading wing point of attack piece, someone who provides elite screen navigation, elite recovery abilities, and closeout length as well, as he can take on most of those thinner and faster guard archetypes around the league. And the reason why I do have Jaden McDaniels this high is because of the offensive boost that we did see from him in the past year. We saw the closeout attacking piece from him, especially in the postseason, especially against the Lakers in that first round, utilizing that knifing frame that he has against bigger bodies like a Luka Doncic, being able to maximize his release point as well when he gets closer to the rim on those skying floaters and on those pit stop mid-range jumpers, and being able to contribute as a credible off-ball scorer. I mean, that just gives him the boost in value to where he is one of the league's best role-playing wings in basketball overall, especially considering he has been in high-stakes environments for 2 years in a row now after back-to-back conference finals appearances. And in those 2 back-to-back conference finals appearances, though a loss, I mean, he's been tasked with 2 all-time elite defensive tasks, having to contain SGA and Luka, which is an absolute luxury to have. And though both of these guys in the past 2 years have had their success against Jaden, that luxury of being able to throw out someone who does give you your absolute best chance to containing those pick and roll and isolation heavy athletes. And with his motor that you're getting, you're just getting your best front foot forward on your point of attack and wing defense every single night. And that is a very valuable asset to have for an NBA team. And that's what Jaden McDaniels brings to the NBA with that defensive stalwart that he actually is. And Jaden himself, we know his limitations. He can still struggle frequently with the offensive piece as a ball handler. He does have some nice agility and driving counters with the footwork, but I mean, his actual handle, he's just got limited body size to protect himself and limited size to be able to initiate that contact through the lane. And that makes it, his driving impact a bit less sustainable than most wings around the league. And he isn't the most capable passer out of those physical environments either, but that really isn't his role. And he's done enough in terms of the improvement piece offensively to be respected in this spot. I mean, McDaniels, in terms of the season that he's coming off, I mean, he featured in all 82 games for Minnesota and had some really encouraging stretches where we did see legitimately amazing production from his role, contributing to a team that was really struggling for offense prior to the All-Star break. And he had a month-and-a-half stretch from Feb to mid-March, and he averaged 18, 8, and 3 assists on 52, 36, 88 splits. And that's the kind of production that Minnesota really needed out of that tertiary scoring spot. So though he isn't really, he's pretty limited as an offensive player due to the skill set and the base that he started with coming into the league, I think he milks enough out of what he does have with the footwork, with the advantage extending, with the understanding of his inherent advantages that he has with the length that he does lean on from time to time, the agility, the over-the-top stuff, the speed. All of that has allowed McDaniels to get enough quality as a role player, and that all backs up the defensive greatness that he does bring as a pick-and-roll container and space-covering machine that we know him to be. And for that fact, and contributing to back-to-back conference finals appearances for one of the best teams in basketball over the past 24 months, he does get the nod here. Moving on, number 77. This will, I think, surprise some people. So down here we have a guy who was recently traded from his playoff team. A guy who was bounced in the first round after a very hard-fought playoff series in the West. And throughout all last year, we're talking about a guy who is a very super reliable two-guard scorer, someone who could bring value both on and off the ball, and someone who has found a new home in Miami. And that is Norman Powell, someone who was getting all-star conversations flurrying around him at the midpoint of the season with how great he was contributing as an offensive star piece. And that really is because of the value that Norman brings as that gravitational movement shooter. We're talking about a guy who brings that scorching shooting stroke in transition, coming off flares, handoffs, curling up from the corner. We're just talking about a guy that brings spacing value at the most elite level. And that value is really enhanced when you are such a lethally dangerous threat with the volume as well Powell made 42% of his threes, but he shot 428 attempts throughout the entire season and shot 45% on catch and shoot looks. So the actual volume that he threatens teams with is what makes him such a valuable spacer in this league. For Norman, the production mark put him in legitimate all-star conversations for a lot of people, but the drawbacks in his game were pretty vivid, and that really contributed to the Clippers' loss in the postseason as well. And that is really just the lack of diversity of impact. I spoke about it with Michael Porter Jr. It's not as drastic with Norman. Yes, he is a powerful play finishing piece. He does have a strong downhill frame. He does have a gifted soft release skill set at the rim. But defensively, he struggles to contain at the point of attack. He's unable to deny driving lanes and predict angles, and he also gets lost off ball quite frequently. He's just an overall bad defender against faster guards, and that does play into your overall matchup dependence. And with the combination of the poor IQ and effort, that kind of does tank any sort of defensive stability that you can bring to a team. And that does diminish the versatility of his impact in playoff environments, especially when the shot and the offensive looks aren't falling, which they weren't in a lot of games in that Denver series as well. So looking at those negatives, there's a big reason why he isn't higher, though he is such a productive offensive piece. And the average run against the Nuggets was another knock for his ranking here. His style of offense really isn't overly conducive to consistent star results in terms of the lack of sustainability that does come from having a fluctuating shot touch as a movement shooter. It's probably the toughest role to execute skill-wise in the league, and even the best guys like Norman Powell can continue to struggle to put it together on the biggest stages consistently. And without the super diverse impact, Norman Powell's playoff value is substantially worse than his regular season version. Though saying this, I don't want to be overly negative here about Norman Powell. He actually is one of my favorite players to watch in the NBA. And he did put together an extremely productive season for the Clippers, and there's a reason why he is above a lot of guys that can score 20 and can't defend as well. There's reasons for that, and it is for the diversity that he brings on the offensive end with the athleticism downhill and with his smart ability to attack certain angles and get downhill as that spot-up attacking piece. And over the past season, he contributed to an extremely strong Harden-Zubac pairing in those non-Kawhi games as well. I mean, he averaged 22 points a game this season on 58% effective field goal percentage. Just an absolutely strong regular season team that he contributed to, and therefore he does deserve this spot here, and he was legitimately one of the most valuable offensive role players in the NBA over the past season. But next I want to shed light to a totally different role player archetype. We have one of the premier rim protectors in the NBA, someone who is a possession-gaining juggernaut in this league with his work that he does on the offensive glass. And we have Walker Kessler, who does land here literally by being one of the most meaningful paint-destructive forces on the defensive end. In the past year, he just ranked 9th in the league for differential percentage on shots contested within 6 feet, minimum 250 defended field goals attempted. But he averaged an incredible 2.4 blocks once again, and just a real stable force who does remain to stay healthy for the majority of the season. And for the Jazz, Walker may be one of their most coveted assets, and that is for a real reason. He just brings a real defensive floor to a team as your anchor that is extremely respectable. He brings a 7'6" wingspan. He brings very high-level footwork activity for that type of frame that he has, and he brings, with the frame, the physical absorption and the timing of his contests as well. I mean, all in all, Kessler is literally one of the most unique rim protectors in the league. Someone who is conserved enough to be able to contain, rotate, and also offer those secondary contests on the back line within single possessions. And there aren't many guys who can hold their heads high on that. And with the difference between guys like Kessler with rim protectors like, Evan Mobley, your Wembys, your Holmgrens, is that he can actually absorb post-up physicality at a very sustainable level with the base strength that he offers against post-up fulcrums amongst the league as well. Someone who won't be battled into position, someone who can actually fight and deny positioning against those post-up fulcrums across the league, something that those rangy rim protectors can't really do, especially in playoff scenarios. We saw Chet Holmgren struggle mightily with Nikola Jokic throughout that 7-game series. A guy like Walker Kessler can actually absorb that contact, keep his wingspan high and offer those vertical contests as much as he can and deny that powerful momentum that those post-up guys try to instill. And on the offensive side, the efficiency is something that he's really mastered in that narrow role that he has as mostly a screen and roll big, a rim diver, as a cutter, and a putback machine. In that narrow role, that efficiency is absolutely enormous. And he dominates on the offensive glass, and that all in all makes him just such a credible offensive piece to back up the work that he does creating your defensive floor. Kessler, in terms of the work that he does on the margins, that's really the draw around him. In the past year, he led the league in offensive rebounding. He was second in blocks. He was fifth in field goal percentage. And he was second in contested shots. And he also led the league in putback points per game. This is truly one of the most remarkable possession gaining forces in the league. And that does have true value in the league, especially when it is a possession-based league where you are fighting for possessions on the margins. That's why teams put so much effort in transition. But when you can have such a physical juggernaut like Walker Kessler, get you 5 extra offensive possessions per game on high efficiency, there is so much impact in what a guy like that can bring to a team. Obviously, the on-ball stuff for Kessler is pretty awful at the moment overall. But like what we said about Jaden McDaniels, that really isn't his game. That's not his role. The post-up game, though it's so raw, it's irrelevant. And the roll man skill itself, though it's not anything special, and you wouldn't say he has, high-level touch around the rim just yet, but he uses his mobility so well, and his ability to thrive in short space in terms of positioning off the ball, that does give him the ability to have that elite volume of second chance opportunities that he has as an offensive rebounding machine, and why multiple teams have attempted to take him from Utah, and why he is one of the most valued role-playing centers in the NBA. Now we're moving on to a champion. Now, someone who just won the championship with the OKC Thunder. We're talking about the best isolation point of attack defender in the NBA. And he really lands here because he is the best on-ball possession-based stopper on the perimeter in the NBA. And that is Lu Dort. We're talking about a guy who's coming in here after an absolutely incredible 2025 campaign as a role player. Talk about all defensive first team. You talk about top 5 in DPOY votes as an isolation stopper on the perimeter. That's an extremely hard thing to do. And the case for Lu is exactly what I stated. The defensive role that he played for the best defensive team of the modern era, that alone places him here in these discussions. And yes, the Thunder have guys who may overtake Lu in terms of the raw talent that they bring defensively. We've seen what J-Dub was able to do defensively as a versatile wing piece. We see what Chet Holmgren can do as an absolutely destructive rim protecting force. But Lu's individual role and his night-to-night tasks, with his excellence that he had in the playoffs in terms of the defensive hounding, from Ja to Jamal to Anthony Edwards and then to Tyrese Haliburton, all of that proved once again why OKC have invested so much time into developing Lu into a more than playable piece, especially on the offensive side of the ball. The 41% three-point mark on 6 attempts a game, and the 1.15 points per possession that he's giving you on spot-up looks is the exact facet that has made Lu a more than credible offensive asset for the Thunder's chosen roster construction around driving and penetrating advantage creation. And though he can't really contribute to that, he can't really put the ball on the floor consistently, he does have frequent lapses in judgment with his decision-making when he is off the dribble, and he sometimes settles for even harder and more contested within the arc looks. And though the feeds weren't really consistent throughout last season, but in the games where OKC really has needed him over his entire tenure with Oklahoma City, where they do need that surging shot making, Lu seemingly is always able to step up with absolute pure confidence. He made 45% of his threes in the 7-game final series versus the Pacers. And in the first 5 games, he started 14 of 24 from 3. Just so much composure and self-belief that he has on the biggest stage, and that bleeds into the defense. Just in terms of the defensive side, though, he's the best lateral mover in the NBA. And someone who doesn't get enough credit for that. He doesn't have the absurd length that guys like Amon Thompson have, but he has all-time elite precision on his reaction processing, being able to predict angles and cover those driving lanes with his upper body size, and his recovery speed and the clean physicality just allows him to psychologically check out some of the top offensive generators in our game. And he did that throughout the entire postseason, leading to an NBA championship for Oklahoma City, their first. And he's one of the best assets that a team could have. And the ultimate contributions to a title were just the absolute epitome of a terrific season for me, and why Lugentz Dort landed here, probably for his first time even on a top 100 list in the NBA, and he ranks at number 75. Now 74, we're going to go towards the New Orleans Pelicans. We're going to go Trey Murphy here. Someone who comes in here as one of those offensive guys that can bomb threes with volume efficiency, whilst also being able to give you more off the dribble juice, off the catch. But the thing is with Trey though, we've seen an archetype like that, but there's a difference with him, and that is that he can, in theory, compete defensively and athletically to a level that most 3-and-D guys can't do. And with this portable level of value in the NBA, Trey lands here above more notable names than himself, and it's more with the offensive ceiling that he brings, but also the defensive stability and the versatility of his defensive frame and the athleticism that he does bring that does land him here. Over the past season, he shot a more grounded 55% effective field goal percentage overall. But coming from the jump in load and production, I mean that, in terms of also garnering more attention on the floor, having to jack up more field goals and more minutes for an injury-riddled Pelicans squad, I mean that does play into this. But he also had a season where he just dropped a 21, 5 rebound and 4 assist stat line, and that has star connotations around it itself in just that basic production line. And in terms of the value towards a winning scenario, the spot-up shooting really is just the supreme asset that he gets. Because he gets that good elevation, he can slide and move on the floor extremely well. He's got the over-the-top release with that 7'1" wingspan. And with substantially more skill than most of those longer 3-and-D wings, with that lethally stretching range that he has, and also with the finishing polish at the cup as well. I mean, Murphy just places himself as a star in his role, being able to go for scorching performances like the 40 pace that we saw on 15 of 20 from the field in that close loss versus the Celtics in the regular season. He had a 41 pace on 13 of 21 from the field against Denver this season. We're just talking about an absolute scorching offensive role player who does bring the athleticism side, which is extremely special as a combination that you're getting at your wing spot. And his length is really something that he uses not just as a shooter and not just as an above-the-rim transition athlete or as a ball handler. We've seen those exaggerated behind the back and stutter dribbles, which have been mightily useful in that shot creation arsenal of his in the past year. But the length itself allows him to compete defensively to at least a satisfactory degree with future upside, especially if the consistency of his defense can be keyed in on. And at this point, his wing pairing with Herb Jones just gives the Pelicans tons of two-way juice between both of their strengths. And with Trey Murphy, though he isn't this offensive engine prospect, he just amplifies any offense in theory that he could be a part of with the off-ball gifts that he has, and as a truly special play finishing piece, and with the athleticism blend that he does have, it's just such a rare commodity in the NBA to have, and why the Pelicans are ceiling tight with Trey Murphy. And now moving on to number 73, we have someone that the Minnesota Timberwolves have just locked up for another 5 years, someone who's hoping to maximize his talents throughout his prime years, which he's just entering now. We have Naz Reid, someone who just brings offensive versatility, but also tenacity and the typical defensive mobility that allows you to run different lineup looks, which the Wolves have absolutely adored. And someone who also just continues to batter down the importance of versatility in this league, and why he does place in these discussions quite highly for a role player. Truly, Reid's ability to actually fit and fill different roles with that diverse skill set that he has just matches him in this portable and matchup resilient bunch of athletes. Someone whose value is just extremely intriguing amongst the league, and the $125 million bag that the Wolves just gave him was something that was entirely expected, with just how useful of a Swiss Army knife that Naz has been for them, especially in Cat's absence over the past year. And last year really was the greater taste for the diversity of his fit in any system or lineup that the Wolves were able to get with Cat out of the lineup, leaning onto that play finishing greatness that Naz does give you. And with the shot making and spacing value that he brings at that size, that really just leans into the real common trend here amongst the other elite role players that we've listed here. And it is really just a factor that allows these guys to slot next to elite creators in the NBA, accentuating and blending with their gifts. And Naz Reid has been one of the absolute best at this in his time in Minnesota. I mean, last season was a small dip in efficiency, but he just bombed another 38% three-point mark on 6 threes a game. And on those occasional pull-up looks that he had as well from 3, he made 41% of those. And we're talking about a guy who is 6'9" and 264 pounds. Someone who moves so swiftly on the floor. And that's really where the second point lies. I mean, you talk about that strong and powerful frame. Just unlocks so much versatility for Reid. He can battle against rim pressures. He can battle against post bigs at a very reliable level. But the athletic profile, that is what unlocks all the switchable stuff for him. And allows him to slot next to guys like Rudy Gobert, with his ability to track drives, with his recovery length on the perimeter. And he isn't really high end here with the switchability overall, but the unique blend of long physical mobility that just gives him so many more capabilities to be able to provide that nightly impact no matter the matchup that he brings. And the efficiency overall offensively is where he's going to get, is where he's gotten his $125 million from. And though we did see a drop overall in that, the heightened reliance on Reid's perimeter and roll man shot making, it was overall expected to see that drop. And the overall arsenal that Naz Reid has just allows so much quality. His involvement in complex screen actions, sometimes being that quality tertiary option on certain possessions as well, just provides greater runways and forces tougher defensive decision-making with the popping mobility, the quick spray jumper that he has. And the Wolves have gotten the absolute best from the perimeter skilled big man that is Naz Reid, who was absolutely huge in their second conference finals playoff run. And he lands here because he's one of the most premier play finishing talents in the NBA, period. And rounding closer to the end of the list, we have number 72 coming in, Jalen Suggs. Someone who lands here, someone that is certainly not forgotten, despite the injuries that have kind of plagued his last season. Jalen Suggs just poses as one of the best and most destructive defensive forces in the NBA, and he is one of, if not the premier point of attack defender in the NBA. And that's why he really lands here. Suggs may genuinely be the best screen navigator in basketball, and he brings a pure blend of physical and athletic tools that allow his success on this end, with the fast footwork and with the general speed as an agile piece, being able to dodge ball screens with his body angles so effortlessly. But he also weaponizes that athleticism when he gets that runway to be able to recover after coming off the screen. And he may be the league's best recovery defender in pick and roll, with the hand-eye coordination when he's contesting shots and the vertical speed mix that he brings to the game. And he also presents a relatively strong frame as well in these scenarios where the physical absorption plays a massive factor, when he's also just denying general angles, denying position and icing ball screens. He just adds that to an unbelievable reaction processing mindset on the perimeter, just accurately timed ball swipes, staying grounded on his closeouts, extreme lateral production, but he brings a ton of that off-ball defensive value too, so where he can actually be that backline rim protector with his constant rotations and with that constant communication, with the passing lane interruption speed that he brings, and all of that he brings at such an elite rate. And it just makes him one of the most talented defensive prospects in the NBA, and why he may be considered the premier perimeter defensive piece in the NBA when he is healthy. The drawbacks are really the offensive side of the ball. I mean, despite some of the growth as a pull-up jump shooter, as your lead guard, he just doesn't really have the foundation of someone that makes you encouraged if you are Orlando in terms of like the ceiling raising piece of your offense, especially if he's going to be your starting point guard for the future. And especially since we're talking about literally the worst shooting team in basketball, which is based around building around two poor perimeter shot making forwards. But overall, despite the lack of natural shot making, Suggs does consistently tend to find his footing offensively as mainly that table setting spot up guard, someone who can attack mismatches with his explosive athleticism as a fast twitch downhill guard, who can press high speeds when he wants to. And adding to that, I mean, like with the growing skill set, that really is only complementing the base value that he brings as a general half-court initiator, as a capable ball handler, and as that forceful defensive machine. I mean, Suggs' pairing with, Desmond Bane, I mean, it gives so much encouraging light to Orlando and just gives them a mean physical backcourt that they can lean onto. A backcourt duo that really just provides such a well-rounded offensive skill set. And so with the superpower that Jalen Suggs does already give you, as a truly established two-way role player, he lands here at number 72 above a lot of high-tier role-playing scorers in the NBA. And lastly, to round out the list of the 80 to 71 list, we have number 71, another guy coming off a finals run. And this will cap off the first 30 guys off our list. We have Indiana Pacer and Lightning shot maker Aaron Nesmith. Someone who has not just contributed to true winning, but someone that has proven how far effort and competitive stamina will take you from a fringe rotation player to an adored, supercharged role player with the superpowers that he has as a confident movement shooter and one of the designated play finishers for the best offense in basketball over the past 12 months. For Nesmith, his case is really the 2025 campaign. He averaged a clean 12 points and 4 rebounds, but on a staggering 62% effective field goal percentage throughout the season, which featured a 45% catch and shoot 3-point shot in the regular season, and that rose to 50% in the postseason. And that's where the story starts for Nesmith's season. I mean, talk about the playoff scaling. And for Nesmith in the regular season, he presented himself as a 62nd percentile spot-up scorer in the league, getting 1.08 points per possession. That climbed to 1.21 points per possession on more possessions in the postseason. In terms of the transition rate, he maintained an elite 1.4 points per possession in the playoffs and a 1.2 points per possession off-screen mark. And he was the league's most dominant handoff scorer in the postseason at 1.17 points per possession. They ranked him in the 100th percentile in the playoffs. And that's really just the off-ball mastery of what he did in the postseason. And basically one common trend that we've really touched on in this episode is how that supercharged shot making really fits the mold amongst these highly versatile role players in the NBA, but none may be better than Aaron Nesmith at the actual skill of shot making itself. Someone who single-handedly changed games for Indiana backed by this skill set in the postseason. But overall, it would be silly just to rank him purely because of that shooting and attractive playstyle that he has. But Aaron Nesmith, as we saw throughout the postseason, was the second point of attack fiddle to an absolutely ferocious postseason defense. And someone that combined with his backcourt running mate, Andrew Nembhard, to produce one of the best defensive pairings in basketball, backed by that continuous hounding effort that he gives you throughout 48-minute games, 7-game series environments. And Aaron Nesmith's ability to provide that high-level screen navigation, someone who could run through tough bodies to stay attached while also giving that physically absorbing approach to containing scorers, whilst Nembhard gave that finesse halting punch. And the fact that he contributed as one of the premier stars throughout the entirety of the postseason, that really played until the last bout of the postseason in Game 7 of the finals. And with that, Aaron Nesmith is so incredibly deserving of this slot to round out my first 30 of the top 100 NBA players list. And with that, I hope you guys did enjoy this segment. I know it was a bit longer than usual, but to me, it is very requisite to give these guys the respect that they do deserve as high-quality role players in our league. Guys who have all contributed to winning so immensely. And with my evaluation and extreme focus on role players in this list, I do want you guys to let me know if you do agree. I mean, there are a ton of high-scoring power creators that I've either left low on this list or completely off the list in general, which you might be able to tell by now, because that is how I view the league and the importance of team building concepts. But it'd be extremely interesting to understand what your guys' takes are. Let me know on Instagram on my Casual NBA Fanatic handle. And I hope you guys have a good rest of the week. And I'll see you guys in the next one when we do break down our Summer League review.